Hi guys, we're doing a spooky scare Sunday. Now I'm just gonna let's start. Let's start. Now this thing is for to Urban Legends horror story animated. We're gonna watch 26 minutes. Okay, we're gonna just end this.
If any of you guys watching this have been to or live in Northern California like me, we can all agree that there really is a lack of scary spots or paranormal activity in general. The Winchester Mystery House is still standing, but it's essentially transitioned into a tourist trap. It has tour guides and a gift shop now. Really takes the skills that I encountered that night is something that still haunts me to this day. It was the middle of spring break that year, and my friends and I were bored out of our minds. Our flight to Miami got canceled last minute, and we knew we were going to be at home for a bit longer. We were a bunch of bored teenagers longing for an adventure. We knew that we were bound to make a series of stupid decisions after this, but hey, we were young. It's what you do. Eventually, I was scrolling through TikTok, and I came across a pretty viral video on my For You page. The TikTok was part of a series on paranormal places and legends across America, and this legend was apparently based in San Jose, California, the closest major city to us. The TikTok described a tale of a tribe, if you will, of albino ghost-like people who come out at night and prey on unsuspecting travelers. They were known to perform various satanic activities and rituals. Some even blamed them for the mysterious disappearances of people on those mountains they resided. Legend says that the blood albinos who lived there were cursed or were demonic beings from another plane of existence. Other online articles talked about a set of screaming ghost-like creatures who would sweep people away in weird ways. Many other people online even mentioned hearing loud, shrill shrieking noises every time they drove by there after sunset. I even found a news article from a rather credible news site mentioning the disappearance of a young man in those same hills. The man was a young, healthy hiker and had seemingly no reason to disappear like that. The police still haven't found his body to this day. But after doing a bit more research online on blood albinos, I came to the conclusion that it was probably some sort of weird cult or drug group up in the hills. I assumed the hiker's disappearance could have just been a plain coincidence. Urban legends are very easy to spread online, so I brushed it off as another dumb myth. I brought it up to 3 of my friends and we laughed it off. All of us were skeptical of the fact that there are so-called blood albinos, and we thought it was another stupid online myth. Most of my friends, including myself, were never into paranormal activity. We never even believed in ghosts in the first place, so it was quite interesting that we were even talking about this in the first place. But my friends and I were eager for an adventure. We were bored out of our minds, and we were all blown away by how close this legend was to us. The so-called cursed mountains were only about 10 minutes away. We had way too much time on our hands, and we wanted to check out what was up there. We wanted to be the ones that would prove that there were no such blood albinos up there and this was just a normal hill. If all else failed, then at least my friends and I would find ourselves a good smoke spot up there. The area seemed extremely remote, and we knew that no cop would be up there. Figuring we had nothing better to do, we set off at around 2 a.m. Coming with me were my friends Taylor, Kevin, and Jaime in the driver's seat. The things we brought with us included flashlights, phone chargers, and a few recreational drugs of our choice.
What the frick is that?
We set our GPS to Hicks Road, San Jose, California, and we drove off.
Who's that behind you?
As we started driving up the hills, everything seemed pretty normal. The twisty mountain roads were nothing too atypical, and we seemed to be going past a water reservoir. At this point, we let our guard down completely. We even started cracking jokes on how stupid this idea was and how people are afraid of everything.
What the frick?
As we drove deeper into the hills, Kevin said that he found a Google Maps link on a forum. The link would guide you to a set of coordinates where supposedly the blood albinos were. We decided to say hell with it and go over to the coordinates. Every part of me told me that this was a horrible idea, but hell, my judgment was horrible at the time. But as we got there, things started to get legitimately eerie. There was no cell phone signal, and we were out in the woods at 3 a.m. If we screamed or cried for help, no one would hear us. Despite our gut feelings, we kept driving. As we reached the house, there was an extended driveway that stemmed from the main road. There were no house numbers, no streetlights, and no blood albinos
My
either.
man, don't go there, you idiot.
As
You're about to
disappointed as
die.
we were still eager to explore the houses.
Are you eating?
We all got out of the car.
Are you stupid?
Kevin and Taylor pulled out a
Why
joint,
did you?
while Jaime and I went over to explore the house
Ohio?
ourselves. As Jaime and I ventured throughout the houses, we didn't see anything too out of the ordinary.
Satan.
Graffiti,
Behind you!
litter,
I
and
saw a
booze
hand.
bottles were among the
I
things
saw
we
a
found
hand.
there.
I
Nothing
saw a
too
hand.
atypical for an old house.
Behind you.
There was a star of Satan painted on the
Behind you.
ground, but we didn't think much of it. Anyone could have put that
Behind
there,
you.
especially a bored group of teenagers like us.
Behind
There
you.
were a few more old sheds and structures, but again, it wasn't anything
Behind
unusual.
you.
It was an ordinary abandoned neighborhood, unoccupied for a long amount of time. But as Jaime and I explored the back of the house, we noticed a path. But it wasn't a paved path. It was a path formed from years of people walking up and down there. Someone had been coming up there. Naturally, Jaime and I decided to explore the path. As we went down there, we heard a loud, ghastly yell. It sounded like a person, but it wasn't at the same time. The shrieks were almost controlled, almost like they were talking to someone. Whoever was making this noise sounded angry, almost territorial. We shined our flashlight roughly where the sound came from. We noticed a deer lying dead on the ground. It was dismembered and mutilated. At first, Jaime and I passed it off as a mountain lion attack. There are a lot of pumas in the hills, but the shrieks didn't sound like a deer or a mountain lion at all.
And there's a
Desire isn't bad.
Lions dragged their prey away. It made no sense why a mutilated deer was lying there. It just didn't add up. But as we looked up and around, Jaime and I froze. In the distance, not too far away from the deer, was a shadowy figure. We could barely make it out in the darkness, but as a reflex, I shined my flashlight at the figure. I thought it was Kevin trying to prank me. But as the light reflected, we realized the humanoid figure wasn't Kevin. It seemed to be some sort of creature that stood up on two legs. Something about it seemed human and not human at the same time. It had paper white, pasty skin, and its eyes seemed to be a bloodshot red. I wanted to believe it was some crazy homeless person or crackhead in the woods, but the way this thing moved, it wasn't human. It was unlike anything we'd ever seen before. And that's when the creature leaped. It hopped over to the deer, and suddenly three more pasty white creatures stepped out and swooped the deer away. Three of them quickly swooped the deer carcass away into the darkness, but to our horror, one of the four just stood there and looked at us. Jaime and I were shaking. I consider myself normally a calm person, but my adrenaline was pumping. The creature shrieked and took a step forward. Jaime and I ran as fast as we could.
Oh my God,
We sprinted knowing that our lives may depend on it. I didn't even think of looking back. The shrieking got louder and louder, and we heard more and more footsteps following us. We came across Kevin and Taylor, and they seemed really confused. "Start the car and get us out of here," I yelled.
What the heck are you
Both of them were
smoking?
confused, but when they saw the look on Jaime and I's face, they knew there was no time for questions. We jumped in the car. Kevin quickly started it and stepped on the gas. As we were pulling out, we heard more shrieks coming up behind us. Taylor started to cry. As we were leaving the windy dirt road, one of the creatures came up unexpectedly from the side and lunged into the car. Kevin didn't even have time to react. The creature struck the side front bumper. None of us even wanted to think about turning back and seeing what we struck, but I managed to look through the rear window and saw it. The albino was completely unfazed. Didn't seem to be hurt by the moving car. It just stared at us menacingly as we drove away.
What the
When
heck?
we got
Your
back to the main
teeth.
city, we explained to
Have
Kevin
you
and Taylor what
toothbrush?
exactly happened. We debated calling
And
the
who's
police,
that
but we knew that for
behind you?
one, we would be incriminating
Is that
ourselves
a
with the drugs in our car, and two,
My
the
God.
police would never believe us. The car had a massive dent in the front bumper from the collision.
Huh?
Unfortunately,
Why?
a big dent in the front bumper isn't enough to prove the existence of blood albinos. We rarely have talked about this. Jaime and I have mentioned it once or twice briefly, but we would both immediately stop talking about it. Kevin and Taylor were skeptical at first, but when they saw how frightened I was, they took our word for it. Let this be a message to anyone who wants to visit the Hicks Road in San Jose. Bring a friend, and go at daytime. You do not want to meet whoever we encountered there.
Okay.
This incident occurred sometime
Next
in the fall of
video.
2006. I grew up in a rural part of Ohio. My house had fairly dense woods located directly behind it. As a child, I had a passion for exploring. I especially loved exploring those woods. It was my favorite place to be. Prior to this incident, I had wandered through those woods many times, always with my mother's permission. There was one tree in particular that I frequently enjoyed to climb, usually about to the halfway mark so I could perch myself on one of the heavier branches and just relax as I listened to the peaceful sounds of nature. Climbing that tree for the very first time was quite an accomplishment. From that position, I could partially see the back of my house. On that day, after a fair amount of exploring, I carefully scaled my favorite tree. I seated myself on a sturdy branch and took in the view. Naturally, being late in October, the sun inevitably began to set within a few minutes. I always felt a little saddened to see the darkness approaching. The woods were like my own little sanctuary. I could entertain myself out there for hours. When darkness began to fall, however, my mother would stand at the edge of the woods and call my name until I obediently returned home, so not to be stranded out there after dark. After watching the sun set until I could no longer see it, I began my descent down the tree. I was nearly at the bottom when I heard my mother's familiar voice calling my name. I thought nothing of it at first, as this routine had occurred plenty of times before. Then I realized something strange as my feet touched the ground. My mother's voice was coming from behind me, deeper in the woods, rather than towards the entrance where she always stood when she called me home. My mom had never entered those woods before, at least not with me. I was eager to find her and show her all of my favorite spots before it grew too dark. That's when I realized something was off. How could she have gone into those woods ahead of me? Certainly I could have missed her, but as I said, she never entered those woods. She continued calling my name, but there was something strange about it. She sounded absolutely frantic, almost angry. Fearing that I was in trouble for reasons currently unknown,
Wait, let's just pause. Okay, wait, just pause. Oh yeah.
Mountain, but it felt like a distinct passing over. There was a specific moment I remember feeling that we were in a completely different location. It was kind of like the moment in Spirited Away when all the spirits come out at night in the city in the beginning. It was like nothing was there and we were all alone, and suddenly it just felt extremely populated. We couldn't see anything and it was still dark, but it was like there was an energy all around us. It was like the sensation of being in a loud crowd without anything physical happening. I started to feel really uneasy, and my friend told me she was getting a little creeped out. I told her it was okay. We were almost to the second tunnel, and then we would descend. We entered the tunnel, and the headlights lit up everything to the end.
That's where the ghosts can live.
A very distinct, clear-as-day little boy was just standing to the right of the tunnel, almost touching the wall. He didn't look exactly like a real boy that would be standing there. Instead, like an overexposed film photograph of a little boy. My friend and I both gasped, and I slammed the brakes dramatically. And then, just like that, it was gone. No, I don't mean he disappeared. I mean we realized he was never there. You know that shock you get when you wake up in a dark room and you see a jacket hanging on the door, and for a split second are convinced someone is standing there, but as soon as your eyes adjust, you realize there was never anything there at all.
Yeah.
It was like that. But there was nothing that we could have mistaken for any type of figure.
That's when magic.
The tunnel was lit up by headlights, and there was no rock formation or pattern in the wall or anything. Just smooth rock wall and the bright light of my headlights. I've never seen anything like it.
Get your chubby face
What
out of the
convinced me is that
camera.
my friend saw it too, and neither of us had the stereotypical reaction of mistaking something for a ghost, like just jumping or feeling a shiver. I slammed my brakes because I was positive there was a child, and then suddenly, there never was. It's the most bizarre experience I have ever had. I will never doubt the existence of the paranormal ever again.
Yeah, danger.
All I
Keep
can
out,
say is,
idiot.
don't always discount
I
urban
said
legends.
don't go there.
They have a funny way of reaching out to you.
Oh my god.
I have worked at 4 different hotels. One of my owners once told me that any hotel over 10 years old will have had deaths in it. The only hotels that don't are because
By the
they're
way, this is
brand
the
new.
next video.
So I started asking the others on my call-arounds. Every hotel in my area had at least one death in the past 3 years, if not more.
Oh.
If it's had deaths, then 100% are haunted, and 100% of older hotels are guaranteed to be haunted. In my 6 years, I worked shift for 2 deaths at different hotels. One natural, one worse.
Hotel Hilton.
My ex worked at a
What
hotel
the
with
heck?
one room
They're
that
the
was never
homeless
rented
man.
and used as storage because it was the site of a well-known...
Wait. Why that is called AOT? Attack on Titan, are you? I mean, look at that. You see that? You see that? AOT? Attack on Titan? Look at that. Man, it's just legend.
serial killer double homicide back in the 60s. Deaths in hotels are not rare. I do not subscribe to the death equals haunted formula of my hotel is only one acted haunted in my time there. I was strictly night shift, sometimes 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., sometimes 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. At 11 p.m. I would get to...
Why the frick did you work on by yourself? There's a dead man. Oh my god.
lock all the doors and deal with people through a night window. I love this, as I generally dislike people, but I'm good at acting the part of wonderful customer service employee. Hospitality is my middle name, but after 11 p.m. I got to close off my domain of lobby/office, front desk, and breakfast room, all combined, and be left alone till breakfast. So I think that's all the setup I need for you to know about my private little kingdom, under lock and key, where all this takes place during my solo hours. A few weeks into my job, I was scrolling on my phone and bam, the breakfast room doors thundered, then rattled to a stop like they'd been kicked by a mule. I glanced at my security camera, which focuses on those doors. Nothing there. I rewind a few seconds. Nothing, so I go a bit further. Still nothing. A full minute back and rewatch it till the moment I see myself jump on office cam. Nothing. The doors don't even move. But I've heard kids slam those double French doors.
What in the heck?
That's what they sound like. That's where the noise came from.
I am alone.
I walked around the office, lobby, and breakfast room, peering out the windows because maybe I'd heard a car wreck. Nothing. I check my bucket. Nobody is in the room above my office or breakfast rooms. These are often the ones we sell last at the morning activity. Or me playing music for myself at night, and it's sometimes disturbing.
How do you do
You
health?
actual
Well, you run.
idiot. Now, this is the end of the channel because I'm gonna go to eat. So bye. Bye. Bye.